Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you going?
A bit chilly.
A little bit chilly. Space, the final frontier, can be quite cold, I hear. It can give you a bit of a chill. It can make your bones freeze up a little bit, but if you have your EpiPen, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you just need some adrenaline and it will save your life.
I would hope so, but other than feeling the frost, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, and I'm doing fantastic. We're back here to talk to one another, to talk about one of our favorite things, which is science fiction television. When you grew up, when you were younger, what was your sci-fi show that you would say was one of the first that you really gelled with?
Doctor Who.
The Doctor Who?
Yeah.
When was it? Was it from the start? Was it a little bit way through?
A little bit way through.
What made you hop on board for that? Was it David Tennant?
Yeah.
Did you know him before?
No.
Or was that the lore? You're like, ooh, a handsome boy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really it?
That was a big part of it, yeah.
Me too, obviously. I grew up with Doctor Who as well. Maybe one day we will discuss Doctor Who, but not today. Today is when we sit down and talk about The Expanse. We are exploring The Expanse as first-timers. This is new stuff to us. We have never read the books. We haven't gone through the graphic novel material. We haven't played any of the game stuff.
Nope.
We are going through the television series for the first time, so don't spoil it for us, or else we will have to make you go out into the hard vacuum of space. And let me tell you, we're not letting you have a shot of adrenaline. We're not giving you that little EpiPen. You're going to be like the other guy. You're going to just be left floating there in disbelief as you gasp your final breath. So don't you spoil it for us, all right? But Rachel, yumyumpod is our name. It's a proud name. It's a brave name. It's a funny name. Many people say, why yumyumpod? It's such an off-the-cuff thing. Yumyumpod? Why is that? Why are we called Yumyumpod?
And then you tell them.
I tell them because my wife and I both watch Star Trek Discovery. We watched all of it, and in season 2, its finale, they had a character lick their lips, throw their hair back sexily, breathily, and they said yum yum as a reply, and it was a moment that shocked us. It was a moment that made our jaws hit the floor. The writing of that, just someone put that pen to paper and it got onto the screen and we got to endure it, and it made you and I agree in unison, we have to podcast. We have to podcast. And as we went through Star Trek Discovery, we talked about other science fiction shows, and one of them that was mentioned was The Expanse, because it was on at the same time. They were competing shows. They were shows directly compared against one another. Oh, if you don't like modern Star Trek, you should see The Expanse. And now here we are watching through The Expanse. And boy, if there was any episode of The Expanse that could have used someone licking their lips and throwing their hair back and saying yum yum, this is definitely one of them. But what episode of The Expanse are we up to, Rachel? What one are we going to discuss?
Oyedeng? Is that how I say it?
I was going to ask if you looked it up or not. I know it is the Belter way of saying goodbye, bye, but I just look at it written down. I know there are some real nerds out there for The Expanse who really get into the language stuff and they know the phrases. We are 5 seasons in, and I don't think I know really many of the Belter phrases.
This is the 7th episode.
I asked a thing. Sorry, I got on a tangent about belter language being something that we've heard a lot.
You got frustrated with me the other time because I didn't immediately know what numbered episode it was. This is 7.
Okay, of?
10?
Of season 5?
Yeah.
We're nearing the end of season 5. We're 7 episodes in, so Oyedeng, as we Aussies like to call it. Oyedeng!
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 Oydenger! Oydenger! Pass me that ciggy. You gonna pass me that
Naomi
ciggy, bro?
makes a desperate attempt to save her son from Marco. On the Rossi, Holden battles for the last sample of the proto-molecule.
That's it.
That's it.
A-B.
Mm-hmm.
Direct but honest.
There is no way that we can engage 9 Martian warships. We don't have enough firepower.
Holden, I know that you want to help Naomi, but getting back the protomolecule is more important. It has to be.
With the namesake being Yum Yum, there's an element of that Yum Yum we didn't say. It was so incredibly sexual that it oozes through the screen, and when we first saw The Expanse, we thought maybe that's what this show would be, because we were introduced to James Holden, who was in that IMDb description, by the way. He is in the show. He is the lead character, so thank God he gets pointed out in the description. How are we introduced to our lead?
0G sex.
And what did that make us think?
We thought that it was going to be a horny show, and we look for the horniness in each episode of The Expanse. And this episode, I think we will agree on the Yum Yum moment. I may be forced to abstain from my automatic Amos pick.
It's weird because Amos was my Yum Yum moment. How strange that you're going to abstain. But please go on.
Amos isn't in this episode.
I know, I'm being a smart ass. Because like Amos, there was barely any horny in this episode.
There was a shirtless man.
When you say man...
I see him as a man.
They do say he's not a boy in this episode.
They keep on talking about him like he's a boy.
We saw him as a baby in this one.
We saw him as a baby. But we see him and he's pretty ripped.
Who?
Philip.
Now, just to get it out of the way, it is uncomfortable to label the child, a 15-year-old or however old he is supposed to be, as the Yum Yum factor. But please don't get it twisted. Don't get it sick in the brain. He is played by an adult. We're talking about the adult. How about we make a distinction? One of the times we'll make a distinction between the show and the reality, because when you say you find Amos hot, you not only find Wes Chatham, the actor, hot, but you also find the characterization, the persona, the attitude of Amos to be hot, correct?
Yes.
But in this case, because Amos is not here, you don't get an automatic Amos pick. You have lost. But for this one, we should say our pick is Philip, but not the character. How about we just say it's Josiah Chase Owens, the actor, who... Is it a surprise that he's a hunk? This show only hires hunks and babes. Just talking about that horny factor for a second. Back in this timeline of events where we started The Expanse and it was on the Sci-Fi channel, and they had the implication that it was going to be horny and raunchy and maybe a little bit dirty. They also had this kind of jauntiness of playing modern day pop songs. Remember when the Black Keys or whoever it is had a pop song of theirs that was hot at the time? Open up the show as we get some fun imagery of a severed hand spinning through space.
I had completely forgotten about that.
We're 5 seasons in. They've never really gone back to that often. I think Delta V was the other time we heard some cool pop music that was of the time, and then that's been it. It's such a strange artifact of what could have been in this series of like a lot of like modern songs, like Killjoys had that a lot because it was also a sci-fi Canadian show. So I just wanted to reference that because it was just on my mind. But Rachel, on a scale of 1 to 10, how sad were you with this episode because Amos wasn't here?
I don't want to talk about it.
What was that?
I don't want to talk about it.
Could you go softer?
I don't want to talk about it.
Now with Oyedeng, what were your opinions on the episode outside of the lack of Amos?
Thank you for clarifying and respecting my wishes. It was a pretty solid episode. Again, it's not a banger, but it's solid.
I really enjoyed this. It kept it fairly simple. We were on characters. Large part of this was people in rooms talking to one another. We had an action set piece or two, but I really am appreciative of something like this. This is what I want more of from The Expanse, because I think the writing of this series is at its strongest when it is sitting down and having the characters talk to one another, when we're getting examinations on these people's psyches, their beliefs, their histories, and where they are going to go. And it allows us at home to have musings and thoughts about those things too.
I think it has to do with how the pacing fits in with the plot, because we were finding a lot with season 4 that it meandered when it was like, it's not time for us to do this bit yet. We've got to do this, has got to wait for this to happen, or so we're going to make the characters dumb in this way so that they can't do this thing yet. So they've got to do this other thing, or, you know, they can't communicate. Just hurdles that are being thrown up so that they can be knocked down, so that things happen later or line up in a certain way. But this, it feels like they're spending time where it matters. Even though, like, objectively it is kind of the same thing in a lot of ways, of we're spending time with Naomi and she can't get to Holden yet. And Holden can't get the protomolecule yet. Bobby and Alex can't be done yet because it's not the end of the season. But it doesn't feel like their choices are being dictated by the writers, but rather motivated by their characterization.
I would rather have an episode like this that takes the time to breathe. There are some things that do feel or represent the issues that we are talking about. There are some things like Alex and Bobby and even Christian gets thrown in here that are like a harsh reminder of those shortcomings in the writing that we buck up against of, oh, we have to prolong this, we can't do this yet. Like Alex has some line of like, oh, Holden, let me tell you, we just had a crazy adventure, but can't get into it. It's a long story. And I just joke, yeah, for some reason it's like 5 episodes long, yet it could have been done in 1. But you and I both agree, the action stuff that was in this episode was the least interesting stuff of the episode.
I said that during the episode. When they were gearing up to start the battle, I was like, is it okay that I don't give a shit about this?
But I think what really weakens that stuff for me is Holden as a character. I was lamenting this previously, but we're back with Holden now, and it really feels like they don't want to have him in this story. He's here because he will pay off later, he will add up to stuff later, and he's been our main character, but
he needs to be here now so that he's here later.
Because what is the meat of the matter that they get into with him in this episode? What is it that he has going on other than chasing after the proto-molecule?
chasing after Naomi?
In defense, he puts that down further in his list of things to do, which...
But it's still there.
But of course it is, but I actually really like that as a thing in which you're waiting for him to go half-cocked and get all emotional and be a previous version of this character and say, I'm going after Naomi. But he does the noble and wise thing, and you see that it hurts him to do it, but he shoves it down. What I thought about was they really spend time and linger on it of making these comparisons to Fred Johnson and talking about the legacy of Fred Johnson and Holden's regrets about his relationship with Fred Johnson. And basically Holden talks to us. He says, hey guys, I listened to your podcast and heard what you had to say about how I thought about Fred Johnson, and I completely agree. And he just sat for a few minutes and just played our episodes in which we talked about it previously, and I was really appreciative of it. But with that element of it, what are your opinions on the discussion around Fred and Holden?
I was fine with it. But, like, I was not that interested in them having that conversation because it's like, well, I already agree with you. And within the conversation, it felt like they were being very repetitive about drawing the comparison and being like, you didn't like each other because you were so alike, and I don't like you because you're like Fred. And I was just like,
you both think you know what's best for everyone, and maybe you're right, but maybe you're wrong. What are
you going to do with this information?
Is it a fair comparison?
Yeah. They both went on a very personal journey to get to the point where they are, where they're important players on behalf of people, and they're just trying to do the right thing. Both convinced that they know what is best for others and that they should be listened to.
I didn't actually make as such a direct link between the two in that fashion that the show has. It makes sense, of course it does. And when the discussion was going on, I was nodding and agreeing. I guess I was too drawn into the fact that they didn't get on, that they were so opposed, and yet they both wanted to do the right thing. Like, there are things that brought them together, and I did like how Holden even said he never lied to me.
I always thought he was playing an angle, not being totally straight with me. I should have, though. He never lied to me.
You know, you two are a lot alike, which is probably why we don't get along.
Holden has encountered a couple of times now people he took for granted when they were alive, and then when they have died, or they've sacrificed themselves, or they've done something huge, or they have to jump through rings of fire to get Holden to be impressed by them or respect them. What is your opinion on that? Because we've had Miller died, Miller sacrificed himself twice, and then Holden has this beautiful epiphany about what it is to be, and he's changed forever. Or it took Prax a lot of work to get some fucking respect out of Holden, and now Fred Johnson is dead, and we see Holden revisiting this type of mentality again. What are your feelings about that and what it says about this character?
I think it weirdly makes me remember that he was a part of the military. And the idea of death being the ultimate sacrifice that I think comes through in a lot of people who are or were in the military.
I thought you were going to mention how he grew up, what he grew up to be.
What he was groomed to be.
What he was groomed and manufactured to be, and how that's made him have a very peculiar look on the world. And we're seeing it come up more and more when it comes to interpersonal relationships, not just his own sense of morality, because does James Holden have connection and empathy with people? Or does he look at them like how they say about Fred, as someone who has a hierarchy and knows how to utilize people for a cause, for a mission, for something, as resources?
I think it's likely not an entirely conscious thing, because I don't think he would describe himself that way at all. But he would say that he's willing to make those kinds of calls.
He has his family, the Rocinante. He has them. He's loyal to them. He's got this intensely close bond with them. But with everyone else, it's very much at a distance, or there's an antagonism, or you have to see him go through this, where they have to do the most heroic thing or die in an honorable way or show their true colors in some grand gesture for him to be, I guess, a little bit more moved by them. Like with Monica in this episode. Here she is again, coming through the door being like, hello, I'm really intelligent and I've proven my worth and I know what's going on and I have already got the bases covered. And you see it actually starts to move Holden a bit. You see him actually start to warm up to her and give her some authority on the ship, but still not all of it.
No, he's not fully there yet. And I think the idea of Holden having his people is very much a reflection of the ideology of the whole galaxy. It's just that his definition of us, in terms of like the insular part, is the Rossi crew, and then the us on the broader level is humanity. Whereas Marco sees us as the Belters.
Or an extension of himself.
And them, the inners, and Mars sees it how they see it, and Earth sees it how they see it. So it's very much a familiar pattern within the show that they have lines and they value people differently depending on where they are within these arbitrary borders.
Tribes. People make their tribes and they stay with them, us versus them. And when civilization is down, we're no longer civil. And with the Rocinante, we only have Holden that is like a pure main character we know and trust and like. The Rocinante crew does not exist in the way that we've had it for 5 seasons now. They're all separated. They're all different. So when we do have the ship of the Rocinante, it's Holden having to rely on Monica because they have served together is the way to describe it. They've gone through the shit together, but they're not friends. They aren't people who have bonded and connected and had any deeper level because they view each other through their causes, through their jobs, through their mission statements. And yet in this episode, we start to see that barrier start to break a bit because Holden has to open up to her if he wants her to be someone he can truly trust and lean on. I like that touch of when he reveals the big information about Marco and Naomi's connection. Her reaction, she was shocked. She was genuinely surprised, but I'm just saying this on like the actress's portrayal of it. It seemed like the character of Monica was surprised at that on a more personal level because she has met Naomi before, rather than, oh, I have a story now. It didn't feel like she was gonna run
to go tell that to the world. And when we first met her, that definitely would have been what she did.
Since we are going over her, Monica makes it abundantly clear that she's not going to just be a bystander in the story. I have my shit together. On series...
You need me.
You need me as much as I need you. And she draws a line in the sand of, what are we doing with the proto-molecule? What are we actually doing with it? We're destroying it? You said you're destroying it, correct? That is what's going to happen, right, James? Okay. And you could tell he was lying in that scene a bit, or like, because later on, he wants to board the ship and do this and do that and check this and check that, and she calls him out on it. They all kind of call him out on it, but she has that line in their conversation about how you're a bad liar. You're a bad liar, because he reveals that, yes, we had proto-molecule and Naomi gave it to Fred, but I didn't give it to Fred. And yes, we did have it. And I said we didn't, but we did. And she's like, yeah, I knew that. I knew you had it. Like, we all did. You're a bad liar. You're not very good at that thing. And with Monica being a part of this, with this story and this crew, she has intel. But not only that, she has insights. And what do you think about her views on things? Because she makes a few theories, a few guesses, and she just has some stances on what's happening.
It's interesting to have another point of view, and that she is so direct with it. It's kind of refreshing, because she doesn't feel the need to impress Holden, and she isn't in awe of him, which is what we've encountered with lots of other people who have come into the plot with him, where they're just like, it's James Holden. And Monica does not have that sense, and it's refreshing.
Her position is to question. Holden's job is to complete the mission. And those things work against each other, but work for each other, because Monica says, how did we get here? How did we get here? Let's follow the chain of events and the potentials of what led to where we are now. Marco has a fleet of Martian warships, and Holden and Bull are thinking, okay, how are we going to overcome that? They're very much thinking about the present / the future. Monica focuses on, how did he get those? What is the thing that gets us to this point and further? And she has her theories about how can someone like Marco be able to pull this off? This would take a huge amount of work. And I love how that just ties into her career as being a reporter. Being a reporter, being a journalist, she has to have the information. She has to have the intel. She has to chase down the leads. And although she's not physically running down and chasing leads in this episode,
she needs to know how and why. Not just what to do next.
You can see her brain going. You can see her chasing down the story already when she's talking to Holden about this. And she's thinking, well, they are going to barter with these Martians, not with just the blue goo and money, but they also have cortisol. It's not just a coincidence that these things happened at the same time, because without cortisol, the blue goo would mean nothing, because you can't control it, you can't study it unless you have people like cortisol, and he's like the expert. So A plus B equals C, perhaps. And I like that. I think that's like a much more fun dynamic than, say, Bull.
Yeah, I'm just kind of bored by him, and I'm weirdly suspicious of him still.
The only thing the only thing I find fascinating is he is not and never has been an OPA person. He was loyal to Fred. And Holden is a bit skeptical of someone like that. But he's like, you do understand this, right? Like, if you care about people,
loyalty to a person.
if you meet someone as, like, huge and magnificent, they'll follow you. You, Holden, know that because you have people like that. And then that goes into what Marco's all about, where he has people who will do that for him, but Marco feeds off of it.
I find it weird and like annoying that Bull was just like, oh no, I'm not going to put Fred in a recycle like a disgusting belter. He deserves better than that. He's not going to be fed to mushrooms.
Give the actor credit. He played it in a very not jokey, but like with levity there, like how he did feel like, I'm Fred's friend, and although he said he wanted to do that, we're not going to do that because he deserves better than that. Like I appreciated his delivery on it.
Fred once told me that when he died, he wanted his body put in a recycler like any belter would.
Oh, fuck that. That ain't happening.
You're gonna deny him his final wishes?
Well, bet your ass I am. He deserved better than being fed to mushrooms.
With the big battle, all the shootout space stuff, it was okay. It was fine. It wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't bad. But it led to what we were wondering or assuming would happen at the end of this. I was like, okay, they find it. What's going to be the thing? They're not going to get the blue goo. They're not going to get that. So
it's not time for that yet. I was very much like, well, this is the second time that they've tried to get it back. Like they tried to stop them from taking it. This is them trying to get it back. There's going to be at least a third. Because that's just the way that things work.
And the ship would rather self-destruct, rather blow themselves up than let Holden and the crew get on there and get the information and perhaps, attain the blue goo. It's not really stated clearly.
I don't think it was on board.
That's what I mean. I was going to say, it might have been on board that ship, but by the time James and co got to it,
I don't think it was
late.
On board when the ship exploded.
Well, that's what I was going to lead into. The episode doesn't say out loud the blue goo was on that ship and they blew it up rather than have Holden take it. That is the assumption, but I think just from Holden's reaction to it blowing up, it at least to how you and I are reading it, the blue goo's already gone.
Yeah.
Marco's probably already got the blue goo.
Yeah. It was more that it might have had information to help finding Naomi, I think. That was more of his hope, really.
But he already has his team working on that, which is Alex and Bobby. They're here too. Christian phones them up to say, thank you, good job. Thank you for that. We'll make sure to keep an eye on those rascals out there. Thank you. I got a shot in I'm here in the episode too. But you two, you're the real main stars.
A lot of messages back and forth in this one.
To really let you know that there was no delay because they're close. That was the big thing of they should be at Mars. Why aren't they at Mars? Oh no, they're really close.
They should be at Tycho. They're not at Tycho.
We have bitched plenty about how Alex and Bobby now for 4 episodes have just been sitting in the Razorback getting nothing to do, really. Or a very awkward conversation for us, but outside of just the obvious statements of, well, here's another episode in which they don't really get much to do, what is there to say about these characters? Because we do reach a new plot thing for them. Like, they are assigned to do a thing, so we know that they have somewhere to go.
Mission. And I don't give a shit. They'll help in some way. I feel like the Razorback is going to get destroyed. Just because it's getting so much use. I feel like it's not going to stick around. Like, it's fulfilling its purpose. And it's going to be sacrificed.
The mission that they're given is to track Naomi, it may lead to danger because the Razorback is just a racing ship. It's not a warship. It can't handle the things that it could be hit by. And Bobby and Alex accept the danger because it's the right thing to do, and it's for family. I must admit something to you. Are you on the edge of your seat?
Let me scoot forward. Yes, I am. And thus I'm also closer to the mic.
I had a twinge.
Ooh.
A twinge.
Where was that twinge located?
Of excitement or an emotion at the fact that these characters have converged with Holden, and then they're going to go with Naomi. Like, I enjoyed the construction of this. I liked it. I had a twinge. But then I felt angry.
Why?
Because what led to here didn't earn it. This moment in itself, I won't lie, I got a guttural emotional reaction, a primal caveman-like, yeah, they're getting these things in place, they're putting the Lego pieces in this slot here, and yes, this is good. But then I had a moment where I was like, but then I realized, but all the stuff that led to this wasn't enjoyable. And just because this moment sparked 2 seconds in my mind of just, it's not worth it. I don't know if you have a similar thing to that when it comes to this, or in general when it comes to storytellings, where you get like that little endorphin hit, and like, is that enough?
No, it's not. It's not enough. Like, not when compared to how much time we plodded along. Did you know that Naomi very passionately hates Marco?
I got a hint of that.
Just
a little bit of a whiff of it.
Extra clear. And I would love to just have a little bit of a loop of her screaming.
I hate you! I hate you! She's fair to hate him, though.
Yeah.
It's fair to hate this guy.
No, it's not. It is not an unreasonable or unjustified hatred.
This is so good, though.
And it's just, they're really using the strengths of the actress in a way that I appreciate. Because we have complained before about how the writers and directors just
milk it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she can cry, she can get emotional, but it's a shortcut in a lot of ways. In this, although all those things happen, the substance is there. The material is hefty. It's weighted. It's a lot to take in.
Yep, and it very much feels like it's part of an ongoing thing. Especially opening with that flashback and seeing what it was like when they were happy. And I feel like the episode does a pretty good job, like a better job than a lot of other shows do when it comes to this, of actively engaging with the characters, each of the characters' perspectives on the issue. Like, we get what Philip's point of view is. We get Marco's point of view. We get Naomi's point of view. We get the old man's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And we understand why all of them are different. And that they're all reaching the point where they know that Naomi's gotta go. And the hatred and love in all of those relationships, and the
Mystery.
levels of those two emotions, and how they're really intertwined in all of those relationships, is so juicy.
the writers really have hit a gold mine here. They've really found some beautiful things to write about, because everything going on with Naomi's side of the story feels detailed, nuanced, layered, thought out, and lived in. There's so much history here, and what you were just saying is completely correct. Why this is so much more thrilling is everyone has their justifications for why they do and have done the things they've done, and why they will continue to do these things, or why they may sway themselves. You may not agree on like a personal or moral level, but Marco thinks that justification is good enough, or he believes it, or Naomi acted like this in the past, but she no longer believes that, and she's grown and she's changed, and Philip, and we can go on and on and on and on with them. And to just go into the Naomi and Marco relationship, this was something that has been talked about a lot, and when we've seen them interact, you can feel really the history.
Up. Yeah, and so much of that is down to excellent performances. If either of them were not as capable as they are, you wouldn't buy it, or you wouldn't be interested in seeing where it goes. But especially because we see Marco as a very static character. He's not going to change. He's not capable of changing. He's not interested in changing.
He'll just use different moves to try and keep going.
Seeing Naomi butt up against that when she is a dynamic character, and we have seen her change and we have seen her evolve, and again, that's another thing that's underlined by the flashback. It really heightened my engagement because of those things. And without a good performance, you would just be like, well, she's just going to get angry and he's not going to change his mind. And you would be bored because you know where it's going to end. But I was so interested in seeing those things play out and seeing how Marco would manipulate the situation, which is what you were mentioning before, but also how Naomi would try and counter that, while also not, like, she's not doing it to be manipulative, but she is manipulating Philip.
She's trying to save him, but in so doing, she pushes too hard in some places, in some moments. It's sensitive.
I used to dream of all the things you would do and become, the endless possibilities. Now, the only dream I have for you is that someday you will regret all the things you've already done.
I'll save your tears. I'm a fighter. Strength makes us who we are.
Killing people doesn't mean you're strong.
I was thinking with Marco, a thing about the performance that really leapt out at me with Naomi is how emotional he was. Tears in his eyes, shakiness in his voice, vulnerability. And you could say these are things he's doing to manipulate her.
Yeah.
But thinking of the villains, the antagonists we've had in this series, 95% of them have been cold, emotionless, guarded, reserved. Think of Bern Gorman.
Yeah.
Evil British mustache twirler. Think of Aaron Wright. His whole thing was he had a poker face that he would try and maintain and never let slip. And Mao, businessman, corporate tycoon. But he would get emotional too, but then he would shut it off because I've got to move on. While with Marco, he is nothing but extremely emotional at all times. But when he's with Naomi, he gets extra And it's about that question of how much of it is his
trying to hide it as well. Like, he doesn't. He knows that Naomi knows how much she is under his skin.
She says as much.
Yeah.
If you fuck with me, you just prove I was right.
Yeah.
No, I'll just prove that you were wrong.
Also, really great blocking with the scene of them in the cell together.
Perfect.
I was just
really well done.
Yeah.
Something that's so beautifully done is you can read his emotionality with Naomi specifically in so many ways. And all of them are valid and all of them can be true at the same time.
Like, it is just under the surface, and you sort of can feel the pressure that he's putting on himself to try and squash it.
But he
is, like, for me, I read so much of it as rage, because how dare you leave me?
And
how dare you leave us, son? My legacy.
We have in the air this question of, are these tears, are these emotions real in any sense, or are they just the tools of a manipulative person, of an abuser? Because he's an abusive person. We see him use pretty much all the tactics an abuser can in this episode to get what he wants.
Where he tears down Philip.
Only to build him up again. Yes. 101 stuff. And she told him about, Naomi told Philip about how Marco does this, only for Marco to do it exactly like that. But here's what I really get out of the relationship between Marco and Naomi, with him welling up, with him getting so vitriolic, is she actually wounds him. She actually does hurt his feelings. She actually does make him upset because she is someone who walked away. He can't fathom that. How can you not abide me? How can you not believe in my dream? My dream is the only way to do things. How could you do that? And I really was hit in the face with that line delivery of, I did all of that thinking that it would bring you back. I acted like that. I got harder and meaner and brutaler because I thought it would bring you back. How could it not? He can't figure it out. Like, he's clueless, yet he's also a tactician.
I have a question for you. I will preface this saying, I believe him, but not in the way that he wants to sell this. So my question is, do you believe him when he says that he wouldn't have used her code if he knew that? See,
not at all.
I think he still would have used it, but he wouldn't have used it then. Like, he still wants her, and he wanted her even more, I guess, back then. Like, actually, I don't know.
No, I completely disagree, because at the end of the day, he says it to her, to Philip, to everyone. She didn't see it my way. She didn't fight the fight that I was willing to fight.
But
she's lesser than, she's not one of us.
He wants her under the thumb. And I think if he knew that would make her leave and that she would escape, then he wouldn't have done it that way and in that way.
He would have,
he would have done it. He still would have continued to escalate, and he still would have used her for it. But he assumed that she would fall in line.
Yep.
And I think if he knew that she wasn't going to, he definitely would not have played it the same way, because he would not have knowingly risked her relationship with him.
But he's also arrogant enough to push, to push. We see him in this episode do that with Philip. He's willing to push people away, to drag them back in. Hence, oh, I did all of this because I thought it would bring you back. How could it not bring you back? He is someone who, if you don't do it his way, he will scold you for it, guilt you for it, manipulate. You see that with everyone in this episode that dares to challenge him, even on the slightest thing, who finds some way of spinning it back around on them and making them feel like the one that's in the wrong here. And this is what I have really come to appreciate about season 5, is this is a season that is dedicated to letting you know who this antagonist is that we're going to spend time with, who they are, what they're about, what they're capable of. While in previous ones, the villains, although we've enjoyed them very much, like Aaron Wright's very fun as an antagonist, still probably my favorite, they are very much additional to the story. Like, oh, the more we learn about them, it's like a little treat. While this season, it very much feels like this is the Marco story. Like, this is Marco's time to be built up for you to have a, like, to fear him and feel for him and, like, have an opinion on him and see why this person's the one that's going to change the galaxy at large, rather than just some shitty corporate business guy who wants profit.
We are already living in the wake of Marco. We're already in that world, and his name is plastered all over it. Like, Gao's impact is very much still there. The fact that the ring gates exist are a part of his legacy, but he is not a name that will be remembered.
Oh yeah,
you get the sense
now,
that of like, I think of Guy Fawkes when I think of historical comparisons for Marco.
Yeah, but he wants to be bigger.
It's not quite right, but that idea of being infamous and like debating reasons and logic and motivations for hundreds of years.
He wants to be a Che Guevara type.
Person who's not very informed.
He wants to be a Che Guevara type.
That's better.
He wants to be, in a way, a Fidel Castro type. Like, he wants to be this person who's going to ride on in, who's got these high ideals, is going to shake up the status quo, but in the end, he's going to be the one that enforces a new bloodier one than more chaotic one or whatever. Like, there's several people you can point to with him. And with this episode, again, this season in general, it is spending the time and earning it with giving us reasons to have feelings and opinions and generally feel conflicted about Marco and his faction. And when I say his faction, I don't just mean the Free Navy, I mean his underlings, his son. We meet these people on the verge of and the aftermath of mass murder. And we have to spend time with them. We have to know them. We have to get to see them more than just the bad guy who used like the big thing that took Earth down and a peg or two. They're more than just super weapon wielding bad guy types. You know, they're not just your classic Star Trek movie villain type. It would be easier
if he wasn't a person, and the show refuses to give him that out.
It refuses to give Philip that out either.
Yes.
You want it to be Philip and Marco, father and son, evil team, fuck them both. Or you want it to be Philip is
irredeemable villains.
Or you want it to be the father is the corrupting figure who has no redeeming factors and or things that you can relate to and or recognize, and you want Philip to be a good, sweet-hearted soul who's found himself in a rough place in life. He is indoctrinated, but we can reason with him, and he will make it out in the end A-okay. And they play with that. they fuck with you with that, because we've been talking about it. Oh, she's going to connect with Philip, and how do you feel about Philip's remorse and his accountability and his relationship with his family and with what he's done and what he is going to do? And that's what Naomi gets to do in this whole entire episode. She sits with Philip and she talks to him. She tries to connect with him. She tries to be a person to him. She really pulls out the I'm your mum card so I can teach you what life is, and I'm the I'm no longer with your father card of here's why your father's a shitty person who's given you terrible advice. And these scenes really hammered in for me something that I praised in an earlier episode, but you were not sure of because it was too early to tell. The actor who plays Philip is really good. He's great. I think he's I think he does this role really well.
I agree. I thought much less about how he's too old to be Philip in this episode. And I was just like, I'm glad they casted him.
Outside of just that obvious statement about the age thing that we do get hung up on, what about this performance and what they did with Philip in this episode has impressed you or has got you interested?
It's almost hard to articulate the specifics of it. But I appreciate, in particular, this actor's use of body language. Because you feel such a difference between the way that he is physically in the space between being with his father and being with his mother. Like him on the bridge, and their interactions are usually very public. And his vulnerability crying in his mother's arms.
The actor has a neutral expression that he utilizes for most of the scenes. You obviously see him get passionate, you see him cry, you see him get angry, but his neutral expression is very esoteric because it's so blank. He's just got this blank face. He's just got this, like, the look in his eyes is like you can tell he's observing things, but what is he getting out of it? What is this character getting out of this? What's his response? What is he going to get out of it is something that's a bit of an enigma because he has this, gaze in his eyes and his face hangs low, and he does that really well. So there's so many scenes in which Naomi is connecting with him, and since she is getting so emotional and since she feels like the connection is happening, you, like the characters do, put that onto Philip. Oh, Philip is getting something out of this. Oh, Philip is connecting with this. Oh, Philip is seeing the light. But look at his face. Maybe he is. Maybe he isn't. Sometimes he is. Sometimes it's very direct that he is, but how much of it is because he's genuinely being moved and he sees the error of his ways and he has remorse? Because that's a question that's brought up of, do you feel remorse for what you have done? He doesn't feel remorse for what he's done. What I really got out of the conversations between Philip and Marco and Naomi is, when it comes to Philip, is him waking up to the fact that he's not his own man. That's what concerns him more.
You have no idea who I am, but I know who you are now. A pathetic, utter-loving walla. You tried to make me weak. Tried to poison me against my real family. You are everything I am not.
He wants to basically fill in the rest of himself, and instead he gets a woman who makes him question himself even more. And like with many people, including Naomi, throughout the series, we see him just double down on an aspect of himself. Like, remember in season 2 when Naomi doubled down on being like belter and proud? Remember that was a thing? We see Philip do the exact same in this episode. We see him double down on having to be someone who's important, someone who's going to show the galaxy at large that he is a son of Marco, and that means something now. And it's sad. It's deeply sad, but I won't lie, it was riveting. When that turn happened, I was like, oh yeah, here we go, baby, we're giving the turn. But Naomi had her story that she told. She said it before, but now she's saying it to Philip, which is when she lost Philip and Marco had shunted her and she hit her low points. When she was going to take her own life and space herself. But instead, she walked away. Instead, she realized that there's more that she can do. And Naomi's advice to Philip and kind of like her character's like belief in things is walking away is always a choice. It's the choice.
It's the only choice that you have.
What do you feel about that statement?
I don't agree, but I get why Naomi believes that. It kind of is the truth in this universe. But really the choice is to stay or to leave, to fight or to surrender.
It's true to who she is. We have seen her often choose to walk away, to run away, to retreat. Not to say that she isn't a fighter. We've seen her stand up and fight and do the right thing, but many times over, drastic decisions that she makes are rooted in this belief. And in this moment, it sat at a precarious place for me because is the show aware of how iffy that is? That advice she gives of like walking away is always is the only choice that you have, because it is a bit of a maybe that's not the greatest advice you should give this guy, but at the same time, isn't it good advice for this kid? Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. But we also have seen Naomi stay and fight for what she loves and what she wants to protect. And how many times have we seen her walk away because she is afraid?
She's here because she decided to step back in. I decided that I needed to be in Philip's life again. And I am here and I'm suffering, but I'm doing it because I want to be in Philip's life and I want to help him. I want to save him. And it bites her in the ass. Philip rejects it, hits her. He bows down to his father, whose ego and mania is unbridled in this episode. One of my notes was, "Oh, Marco's a nut. Like he's just off his rocker." We see a few times he overtly goes to those places, while in previous ones you know it's there, but he's keeping himself in check. In this one, no, not so much, because he's genuinely offended. Like, other times he's been offended, but he has to play nice. But this one is like, nope, it's crossed the line for me. And so we have to put things right. And we have at the beginning of the episode, him coming to Philip and giving it to him like it's his choice.
But it's a test.
It's a test. He wants him to pick correctly of, can we use the ship? Because it's useless. And it's almost like it's an extra punishment for Philip of like, you have to.
This is the only thing that your mother has ever given you. Give it up.
Because I told you to. Because
I
expect
say it's worth it.
You want to talk about Sin, the old man, and how he interacts with the story?
Sin fucked her over. A surprise to nobody, but still a disappointment to me.
You're disappointed?
I am disappointed that he helped he helped hide Philip.
Mm-hmm.
Because he believed the same thing as Marco, that she wouldn't leave them, that she would come back.
There was something that was just a lot to take in, which is when this old man starts to feel bad about what he's done, and he starts to stand up to Marco and tell Marco, just let her go. Just let her go. This has gone far enough. There's nothing to be gained from this. Marco makes it a point deliberately as just a power move, but it does say a lot that he learned all of this from him. You were my inspiration. You were our father figure. You were the one that got us through these things. You were the one that backed me up and motivated me and made sure that everything I did was the correct thing. And now you're turning around? Now you're feeling bad? How dare you? How dare you? But isn't that an interesting thing to just chew on? That Marco, how much, because we were talking about this in a previous one of how much of Marco is a classic case of nature versus nurture? Is he naturally just this evil, poisonous piece of shit? Or is it the environment that he grew up in? He's a belter, and we see with the belters, they endure and they have to go through these hardships, and it's a part of why this conflict Marco's perpetuating exists in the first place, because of colonial oppression. But we also see in this episode, he just naturally can't help himself. He just can't help but get off on being cruel to people. But now we see, or now we're told, and we see it's true, this person helped instill that in him? How does that make you feel about this character who, in this episode, is treated as a tragic figure? That, in a way, he is in part responsible for why Marco is here right now?
It's frustrating because you know that there is truth to it, which is what part of why it manages to pull Sin back into line. But you also know that it's a lie in aspects as well.
But we get Sin talking to Naomi and laying it out, and he admits he did wrong by her. He's sorry for what he's done. He wishes he could make things better. In fact, he tries to make things better by doing the thing he didn't do the last time when Naomi tried to kill herself. He steps in and says, I'm here, don't do it. Please, let me help you.
And then she's like, oh no, that's not what I'm doing.
I wish you didn't come. And it looks like it kills him too.
Yeah.
With that though, with this character and his journey, just even in this episode, what do you get out of this? What is your reaction to it? What does it offer up, and how do you end up feeling about it?
A little bit of it's collateral damage. The way that these protagonists live their lives has consequences for the people that care about them.
I look at him as too little too late.
Yeah.
He admitted his wrongdoing. He had guilt. He felt something. He wanted to be better, but he waited too long, and now it costs him. It's sad that he dies, and he did it because he was going there to do the right thing, but it's far too late now. And so he is a victim of that. He stood by for far too long. He let these things transpire. He aided them. He made them happen, and now he has the cost of it. It's great to see that he was able to recognize these shortcomings within himself and stand up and try and do stuff at times. But still, we saw during the I hate you scene with Marco and Naomi, him just sitting at the side, giving a glum look of, oh, geez, what can I do?
Yeah.
And as you say, there's a cost to that. He's collateral. But at the same time, He was someone who made Philip collateral damage. He's someone that made Naomi collateral damage. So
Yeah.
it comes around to it's now his turn to be that.
Nobody is innocent.
He was my son.
I'm so sorry.
I thought you loved me.
I loved all of us. We were family. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought one day you would come back to Marco.
And Naomi does a real, it feels like an Avengers movie or like, it feels like Guardians of the Galaxy thing where if I just float out, or Farscape, it's a Farscape thing, I'll just jump into space rather than be here and work it out later.
Yeah, I really thought of Guardians.
She injects herself with the thing, she makes it over to her ship, and she's fucked up, and now she's stuck on that ship that's a trap for the Rocinante. But
she's off.
She's away from Marco because I would rather walk away than be with you. That was the thing that really stuck it to him earlier in the episode when he's like, "Do you regret it?" Not as much. No, like I regret it, but I would rather have done it. I would rather do it again than be with you.
He's so annoyed that she's not ashamed.
Not ashamed at all. Is there anything else you want to say about the episode?
I enjoyed this a lot more than I was expecting to be honest. Because it is starting to get to that pointy end and logically everything has to come together.
It's getting to that pointy end?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a stabby end.
Uh-huh.
And things are coming together but also drifting apart.
Things are meant to have a point at this point.
It's coming to a pointy end. Sorry, you said it like a point. I was like, it's a very pointy end.
Yeah.
But things are coming to a pointy end.
Yeah.
I've said it too many times now.
It's yum yum for me.
Yum yum.
On our rating system of yum being bad and yum yum being good, I also give this a yum yum.
Yum yum.
Where are you at with season 5 overall? Like, are you happy with this?
Oh, it's so much better than season 4. It's hard not to be very happy with it.
Well, how about you tell us where we are going next in season 5 of The Expanse? What is episode 8 called? I don't know.
We're going into Hard Vacuum.
That's a great title. Now, you and I haven't watched this episode. We've only heard the title, haven't looked at the description, haven't looked at the thumbnail, haven't looked at the rating. So, what do you think will be going on in Hard Vacuum? I guess the title already gives away a little bit of what we will be following on, but what do you think will be happening in episode 8?
I think we're going to get some drama. I think we're going to get more Holden. I think Holden and Alex are going to meet up.
When you say we're going to get these people, what do you think we're going to do with them, though?
They're going to converge and start hatching the plot for the last 2 episodes.
In what fashion do you think? Like, how's Drummer going to get roped into things? Because she seems very off to the side.
She knows that Naomi was on the ship. So maybe she picks up Naomi.
Oh, interesting. Just to talk about Drummer, I think she's in a very tricky place right now in which she will have to, because of the politics, be on Marco's side in this conflict, especially now that she has one of Marco's people on board her ship. So we're going to have this conflict of interest in which she's going to have to fall into line with Marco while her friends, people that she respects and sides with, are having to fight against Marco. So there's going to be like that conflict of interest. That's what I think she's going to get up to.
I think Marco's guy is going to die.
Oh, yeah, you think she's going to die? Yeah. His tribute. But with Holden, what do you think is going to go? Like, he finds Naomi's ship, but it's a trap, right? Like, for the Rocinante. Also, is it going to be the Rocinante that gets to her or the Razorback? Because he sent them to go get tracking her.
True.
They're the ones that have been given her ship information to go look into. So is it going to be Alex and Bobby that get lured into this trap?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe, or Naomi's gonna disable the auto controls and stop the trap.
What about your boy, Amos? Will he return?
I don't think we're gonna get much of him.
Do you think he makes it to Baltimore?
I think they'll be on the road or there by the time that we check in with them next.
My predictions on Hard Vacuum is I think we're going to spend time with Naomi suffering on the ship and trying to figure out a way of being able to communicate from it or being able to use it to her benefits, using her technical skills, because that was brought up in the episode too, that her and Philip have a connection because they both are interested in engineering, because he was fiddling around with a thingamabob and she's like, oh, I used to do that when I was young too. And I think we're going to see, again, her engineering skills come into play. I think what I said a moment ago, Drummer and Holden and so on are going to have some butting of heads, even though they don't want to be. But I'm going to throw it over to the Earth side of things. I think we're going to see Christian again. And I think she's going to have to try and lead Earth while not actually being the person who's leading Earth again. I think we're going to see her fall back into the role of season 1.
She already is.
Of course she is, but we're going to see that more directly. Will Ashanti be involved in that story? She's coming back, so maybe she's arrived.
On the shuttle.
She was on the shuttle.
Be at Luna by now.
We were promised some Ashanti content. Again, still waiting on any evidence that Ashanti was referenced in The Expanse before her sudden appearance in season 5. But a huge one, I'm guessing, is we are going to see Amos in Baltimore with Clarissa, and they're going to team up with Eric to try and leave. Because I think Eric is going to be like, there's nothing left here now.
There were shuttles going off near Baltimore. Sorry.
But how damaged is Baltimore from this? And will Eric see the value of what he used to cherish? Because when we saw him, he was cherishing all of the wonderful things, but now all of that's going to be in disarray with how the world is. And or the opposite, maybe Amos and Eric butt heads because Eric's going to try and do like the whole, Mad Max thing where it's like, I'm the king of the wastelands type deal. You know what I mean by that? Like, not literal wastelands. Like, I think Baltimore's fine, but you get my drift there. And Clarissa's going to be...
He can use it as an opportunity to increase.
So that is it. Any predictions or thoughts on anything further? Anything beyond the next episode? Did this move anything along in your mind when it comes to the series?
I feel like Marco isn't going to be fully defeated at the end of this season. I feel like he's going to carry over into season 6 because I think it's too hard to up the stakes from him.
He has his navy and his forces that still, even after their great victory, still feel like they're building towards something. So they could do the Game of Thronesian rug pull type move on you, but I don't think it would be worth it here. I have a prediction for the future, which is Marco is going to give the Martians what they want of the blue goo and Cortazar. And the Martians, whichever group it is, like we know it's higher ups, are going to be utilizing that for the ring gates because those exist. And the Martians are scientifically driven.
If they're fucked over
they're
Earth,
they're going to go into the ring space and fuck off.
Is thinking about our galaxy, then it would position Mars
because
nicely
Marco's
to
like
go.
Marco wants to
go for
govern the whole thing, and was like, we decide who's going. But I think these Martians are going to fuck off and be like, we're taking the blue goo with us, and we're going to maybe shut the gate behind us, or who knows what. We still have up in the air. I think we should just at least give this a second to just give of thought and discussion. But I guess I've kind of been flippant about it. But what about the orange goo? Like those interdimensional aliens?
I think that's maybe more next season.
But
honestly.
what are your thoughts on it in terms of like endgame stuff? Like, what is all of that about?
I don't fucking know. I don't fucking care right now.
Are the Martians going to build a super weapon to attack those guys? Do they even know those guys exist?
No, I don't think so.
Who knows? It's just Holden and the Doctor
Fred
from season
knew.
4, and Fred knew. Not many people know about this. Does
No.
Christian know? I think Christian must know. I think some higher ups of government stuff know.
Maybe.
But or maybe the corporations. I don't know. I can't remember. But like, how far does that extend? But I just wanted to bring it up because the show made such a big deal out of this last season with them traveling through the gates and it fucking up Holden, and with the big reveal of it. And then at the start of this season, they made a big song and dance about this new intergalactic, interdimensional threat. And then it's just faded away in the background for all of this season. And it just feels like, hey, I can't forget about that because you introduced a Cthulhian horror bigger than the previous one into the show, and you're not mentioning it again. Rachel, they're not mentioning it again, so it must come back, right?
Yeah.
That is our discussion. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have enjoyed what you have heard, you can get these episodes early on our Patreon. We have a Patreon in which we release bonus content on there first, and you can be a part of our community Discord in which you can talk to us and fellow listeners of the podcast about your thoughts on things, and we chat about media we're watching. And if you do have more stuff you want to say, you can also email us over at
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
We are on those social medias under yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast. Everything is included in the description of this episode, and make sure to share it about all over the place. If you have enjoyed our material, make sure to give it to your friends and say, these people are going through the Expanse. You may enjoy this. They're new to it and they have a lot of crazy stuff to say about the Expanse. And your friend may say, oh, well, I haven't watched it myself. Well, don't worry. We can be a good companion for that. And rate and review the show. The usual things you hear at the end of the podcast. But why you stick to the end of the podcast with yumyumpod is because of this very thing, which is every now and then we like to just chuck in a little bit of goofiness right at the end. Right at the end. And Rachel, a little while back, we were wondering if you cast the British version of The Expanse, who would you put in it? Who would you put in it? And now we have a few new characters.
Yeah, we
I feel like we
do.
have to bring it up again of like, which British kooky actors would you have as Marco? As like the big bad of this series, who would you grab from your roster of people and throw in here?
Stupidly, my brain went to David Mitchell.
I swear we said he was like
Yeah, like
in this
because
already.
yeah, we did. I swear we did.
We need
But
someone with charisma.
I'm imagining him being green screened into these scenes.
He plays it as like that very angry waiter at the restaurant. He's like,
snooty waiter.
they're gone. They're all gone, and we're back. It's like, who? You know, it's like these people who are, inexplicably rude, yet they are waiters. I don't know. It's tough.
I feel like you need somebody with good hair
You need somebody with great hair.
and charismatic.
You need someone with some charisma. I don't know. It's really, really tough. Because he's such a magnificent presence in this series. Who, if you got as a British person to fill in those shoes? It's really, I'm struggling to think of it. I was going over it before we recorded. I was like listing in my mind like who would be this person, and I feel
Tom
bad.
Hardy?
I feel bad because
What do you
I'm
think?
also giving I'm also giving a Peep Show one, which is
Oh.
I already, and I swear I've already cast him before, which is the boss from Peep Show.
Yes, you have. I swear you have. But what about my suggestion?
Of green screening David Mitchell into
No,
it.
I just said Tom Hardy.
Well, he's too high for this. He wouldn't lower himself to television unless it's his taboo show that he makes once in a blue moon. Look, I would give it to Tom Hardy's doppelganger, that guy from Prometheus. You know that guy? You know that weird little guy who looks like Tom Hardy but isn't Tom Hardy? But everyone out there, thank you for tuning in. Let us know, who's your British pick for Marco? He's a tough nut to crack, and if so, make it possible someone from Peep Show. It's always good to pick someone from Peep Show. Oh, I know who we can get for Marco. Duh. You get the guy with the husky voice from Black Books, Peter I always get his last name wrong. Peter Saronefowitz or whatever. You know, Darth Maul. You get the voice of Darth Maul. You get the guy who has like the kitchen gun or whatever it is, you know, him. You get that guy. He's always good. Can you imagine like him doing the voice he did in Black Books where it's like, "You want me to come over there, Fran? I'll come, Fran." Imagine him doing that. "Naomi, I thought you would come back for me, Naomi. How could you not come back, Naomi?" Fun fact, he used that exact same voice in Spaced a few years earlier. He just reuses that, "I'm here now," voice. "My free navy, Naomi."
Do you want me to come over? I'll come over, Fran. Do you want me to come? I'll come, Fran. I'll come. I'll come.